All right. So this is our weather calendar. We started it yesterday, like you guys did. We wrote the month of October on the top, and we numbered the days of the month starting on Thursday the 1st, even though we didn't start the calendar until technically yesterday, which is the 7th. And so yesterday it was windy and partly cloudy. Okay. And then today we had a discussion how it was windy and really windy and partly cloudy. And we had a discussion about how we can have the same weather every day, but the weather's still different. So yesterday when we went outside and we felt the weather, we could feel wind. We could see wind. How do you see wind? Yeah, we were looking at the trees and stuff, and the trees were moving, the leaves were moving. Okay, so we decided that yesterday when we checked the weather that it was windy. And then we looked up in the sky. This is when we looked up in the sky, and the clouds from earlier in the morning were clearing up, and we could see some blue sky and some clouds. So we said it was partly cloudy. But today's weather and yesterday's weather, even though we're saying windy and partly cloudy, we're saying the same words, but today was much, much, much different than yesterday. So we're talking about the same words, but then we're also talking about the level of intensity. Okay, so yeah, yesterday was windy, but it was just small wind, maybe. Today it was windy, but today it was big wind, lots of wind, fast wind, okay? Yesterday, there was a lot of clouds, but there was also some sun when we were checking the weather yesterday. Today, there was a lot of sun and not as many clouds. But there was still clouds and there was still sun. So that's still partly cloudy. So we have to have these discussions that even though our calendar is saying windy, partly cloudy, we can adjust this. And so one of my kiddos said, well, why don't we do this, Mrs. Lewis? All right. And he said, why don't we put 2 windies on the calendar to show that it was really windy? All right, so that's what I'm going to show you. This is what we did to show that today we had the same weather words. We just had different weather. All right. So he had suggested put 2 windy on today's to show lots of wind and still partly cloudy. I was like, perfect! Makes great sense. Yes. So now it makes more sense. Windy, partly cloudy for yesterday. Windy, and partly cloudy for today. Perfect. Now you can have those same kinds of discussions with your family at home about the weather. If the weather, you're using the same weather words, but the weather feels different, talk about it and discuss what you could do to make it fit, to make it match the day. All right? So I'm going to read this book called, guess what? Weather. It is called Weather. Weather is in the air. Say that with me. Weather is in the air. Sometimes the weather is hot. Sometimes the weather is cold. Who is dressed for hot weather? Who is dressed for cold weather? Sometimes the weather is wet and sometimes the weather is dry. Who is ready for wet weather? Who is ready for dry weather? Sometimes the weather is windy, and sometimes the weather is calm. Factories make steam. Which factory shows a windy day? Which factory shows a calm day? Tricky question. People use tools to measure weather. Hot and cold weather can be measured with a thermometer. Do you have a thermometer that you could use at home? Wet weather can be measured with a rain gauge. Maybe you have a rain gauge. I don't even have a rain gauge. Wind direction can be measured with a windsock. Trees are in the weather all the time. Trees live in hot and cold weather. Trees stay calm or they move in the wind. What kind of weather is happening here? That's a lot of wind. And you can tell which direction it's going to. Scientists use tools to measure the weather. They tell us what the weather is today. They can forecast the weather, so we know what the weather might be tomorrow. A weather forecast helps us prepare for a rainstorm. We might decide to stay indoors or plan to go out wearing a raincoat and boots. A forecast can help us prepare for a snowstorm too. Can you expect this kind of weather where you live? Weather is in the air. You feel it and see the weather every day. Go outside. Enjoy the weather. It might change tomorrow. Bye.